The message came through the Deep Space Communication Array at exactly 1437 Galactic Standard Time. Captain Ji-won Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the stars through the main viewport, when her communications officer called. Out. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. It's marked as urgent and directed to all human vessels and colonies. Ji-won turned away from the stars. She had been a starship captain for 12 years, but something about this message felt different. The tone in her officer's voice carried worry. Put it on screen, Lieutenant. The main display flickered and the familiar symbol of the Galactic Council appeared. 12 different alien symbols formed a circle around a central star. It was supposed to represent unity and peace among the galaxy's advanced species. Today it looked cold and threatening. A voice began speaking in perfect galactic standard. The translator made it sound emotionless, but Ji-won could hear the authority behind every word. To all human settlements, colonies, and vessels operating beyond the Sol system. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, the Terran Expulsion Act is now in effect. All human presence outside Earth's solar system must cease within one standard galactic year. Any human settlements, installations, or vessels remaining after this deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Ji-won felt her stomach drop. Around her, the bridge crew had gone completely silent. She could hear only the quiet hum of the ship's engines. The message continued. Humans have shown themselves unable to integrate peacefully with galactic civilization. Your rapid expansion, aggressive colonization methods, and refusal to accept proper galactic hierarchy have made your presence a threat to established order. This decision is final and non-negotiable. The transmission ended. The council symbol faded, leaving only the star field on the main screen. Captain? Her first officer, Commander Tae-woo Lee, spoke quietly. What are your orders? Ji-won stared at the stars for a long moment. Out there on hundreds of worlds, human families were building new lives. Children were being born under alien suns. Farmers were growing crops in foreign soil. Scientists were making discoveries that could benefit all species, and now they were being told to leave it all behind. Set course for Admiral Park's flagship, she said finally. Maximum speed, and send a message to all ships in our patrol group. Emergency meeting at coordinate 77 Alpha. The Defiance turned toward the inner colonies, where Admiral Hyunwoo Park commanded the human colonial fleet. But Ji-won knew that even their most powerful ships would be like insects compared to the full might of the Galactic Council. 3 hours. Later, Ji-won sat in the conference room aboard the massive battlecruiser Seoul. Admiral Park looked older than his 55 years. The news had aged him in a matter of hours. 47 colonies, he said, reading from a datapad. 230 million people, and they want us to move them all back to Earth in 1 year. Captain Miseong Cho of the transport ship, New Busan, shook her head. It's impossible, Admiral. We don't have enough ships. Earth doesn't have space for that many people. The infrastructure alone would take decades to build. They know that, Admiral Park replied. This isn't really about relocation. It's about elimination. The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what he meant. The council wasn't just exiling humans. They were sentencing them to death by making impossible demands. What triggered this? Asked Captain Sung Jin Kang from the destroyer Incheon. We've been peaceful neighbors for over 60 years. Admiral Park activated the main display. A star map appeared, showing human colonies in green and alien territories in various other colors. We grew too fast, he said. When humans first reached the stars, we had maybe 20 colonies. Now look at this map. The green dots were everywhere. Human settlements had spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They followed trade routes, established mining operations, set up research stations, and built farming worlds. The council species took thousands of years to expand this far, Admiral Park continued. We did it in less than a century. That scares them. Ji-won studied the map. It's not just about territory, is it? No. The Admiral's voice was grim. It's about what we represent. Humans adapt fast. We learn quickly. We work with anyone willing to work with us. The old species built their power on being slow, careful, and exclusive. We're everything they're not. Captain Cho leaned forward. What about our allies? The Kellen have always supported human expansion. The Novari have trade agreements with half our colonies. I've been monitoring Council communications, said Commander Yejin Park, the fleet's intelligence officer. The vote wasn't as unanimous as they claimed. At least 3 species voted against the expulsion. But the major powers pushed it through. Admiral Park stood and walked to the viewing port. Outside, they could see dozens of human ships holding position. Military vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports, and colony ships. It was an impressive sight, but it was nothing compared to what the Council could bring against them. We have a choice to make, the Admiral said. We can comply with the order and try to evacuate as many people as possible, or we can resist. Resist? Captain Kang looked surprised. Admiral, with respect, we can't fight the entire Galactic Council. Their smallest patrol fleet has more firepower than our entire navy. I know the numbers, Captain, but there's something else to consider. Admiral Park turned back to face the room. We have reports that several colony worlds are refusing to evacuate. Ji-won wasn't surprised. She had expected this. Humans had put down roots on these worlds. They had built homes, started families, created communities. Many of the colonists had been born under alien stars. Earth was just a distant blue dot to them. New Jeju has declared they won't leave, Commander Yejin Park reported. Same with the farming settlements on Kepler 442b. The mining colony on Ross 128b says they'd rather die fighting than abandon their homes. How many? Admiral Park asked. At last count, about 40% of all colonists are refusing evacuation. Orders. The room erupted in quiet conversations. 40% meant nearly 100 million people. Men, women, and children who would rather face the Council's promised violence than give up their homes. Ji-won thought about her own family. Her sister lived on New Jeju with her 2 young children. Her parents had retired to a peaceful colony world where they could see twin suns rise every morning. They had all worked so hard to build new lives among the stars. There's something else, Admiral Park said, raising his voice to quiet the room. I've received a message from an unexpected source. He activated a secure communication channel. The face that appeared on screen was definitely not human. Blue-gray skin, large dark eyes, and the distinctive gill slits of an aquatic species. Admiral Park, the alien said in heavily accented galactic standard. I am Commander Vreeland of the Depth Dweller Fleet. My people have learned of the Council's decision regarding your species. We wish you to know that not all of us agree with this action. The message was brief, but its implications were huge. If some alien species oppose the expulsion, there might be hope for a diplomatic solution. How many species are willing to support us? Captain Cho asked. Unknown, Admiral, Park replied. But we're not completely alone. Ji-won stood up. Admiral, request permission to return to patrol duty. If some of our colonies are refusing to leave, they'll need protection. Granted. But Captain Kim, understand that this puts you and your crew at risk. Once that deadline passes, the Council will consider any human presence hostile. Understood, sir. As the meeting broke up, Ji-won caught Admiral Park's arm. Sir, what do you really think will happen? The older man looked tired. I think we're about to find out what humans are really made of, Captain, and I think the galaxy is going to be surprised by the answer. 2 days later, the Defiance was back on patrol near the outer colonies. Ji-won stood on her bridge watching the planet New Jeju turn slowly below them. On the surface, human farmers were still tending their crops. Children were still going to school. Life continued as if the galaxy hadn't just declared war on their existence. Her communications officer looked up. Captain, we're receiving multiple signals from the surface. They're asking if we're staying to protect them. Ji-won thought about the Admiral's words. What were humans really made of? She was about to find out. Send a reply, she said. Tell them the Defiance stands with New Jeju. We're not going anywhere. The die was cast. In less than a year, the most powerful military force in the galaxy would come to remove them. But for now, under an alien sun, humans were making their stand. Dr. Yoonji Lee watched the evacuation ship lift off from her laboratory window. The transport vessel climbed slowly into the purple sky of Kepler 442b, carrying another 1,000 colonists back toward Earth. In 6 months, it would be her turn to leave. She turned back to her workbench where rows of crystalline samples glowed with soft inner light. These weren't just pretty rocks. They were alive, and they might hold the key to curing diseases that killed millions across the galaxy. Dr. Lee, her assistant, Jisoo Han, stood in the doorway holding a data pad. "The evacuation coordinator wants to speak with you." Yoonji sighed. "Tell him I'll be ready when my research is complete. He says the deadline isn't negotiable. All research must stop immediately. Then he doesn't understand what we're dealing with here." Yoonji had spent 8 years studying the crystal beings of Kepler 442b. They communicated through light patterns and could share memories across vast distances. More importantly, they could repair cellular damage in other life forms. She had seen them heal wounds that should have been fatal. Last month, she had finally made a breakthrough. She discovered how to communicate with them directly. The crystal beings had shown her memory patterns that looked like molecular blueprints. They were teaching her their healing methods, and now she was supposed to pack up and leave. "Jisoo, what do you think would happen if we stayed?" Her assistant looked nervous. "The council ships would come. They'd force us to leave or kill us." "I know." Yoonji picked up one of the crystal samples. It pulsed with warm golden light as if responding to her touch. "But what if we could finish the research first? What if we could prove that human crystal cooperation could save lives across the galaxy?" Jisoo was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised Yoonji. "My brother has the wasting sickness. Earth doctors say there's no cure. If these crystals could help him..." Yoonji looked at her assistant with new understanding. "How? Many other families have sick members who could benefit from this research. Most of us, Dr. Lee. That's why many families came to the outer colonies in the first place. Earth's medical system couldn't help them." 3 days later, Yoonji stood before a gathering of 200 colonists in the main settlement hall. These were the people who had chosen to stay on Kepler 442b despite the evacuation order. "The crystal beings have agreed to share their healing knowledge with us," she announced. "But only if we prove we're committed to staying and learning. They don't trust species that abandon their partnerships." A farmer named Do-Young Kim raised his hand. "Dr. Lee, are you saying the crystals want us to stay?" "I'm saying they're willing to teach us things that could change medicine forever. But we have to choose. Leave now and lose everything, or stay and risk everything." The vote was closer than she expected. 123 people chose to stay. 77 decided to take the last evacuation ship. As Yoonji watched the final transport leave, she felt both proud and terrified. They were now, officially, criminals in the eyes of the Galactic Council. Across the galaxy, other ghost colonies were making similar decisions. Captain Do-Hyun Choi had been hauling cargo between the outer settlements for 15 years. He knew every hidden asteroid base, every remote mining station, and every back-channel route through the frontier. When the evacuation order came, Do-Hyun saw an opportunity. "You want me to smuggle what?" asked Miran Park, his first officer. "Supplies, medicine, food, communication equipment, everything the ghost colonies will need to survive." They were sitting in a cantina on the trade station crossroads, one of the few places where humans and aliens still mixed freely. Most other stations had banned human ships after the expulsion order. "Do-Hyun, that's not smuggling. That's rebellion. The council will hunt us down." "They're already hunting us down. At least this way we help our people survive." Do-Hyun's cargo ship, the Silent Runner, wasn't much to look at. It was old, scarred, and held together with spare parts and determination. But it was fast, and more importantly, it had hidden compartments that council scanners couldn't detect. His first run was to a mining colony on the edge of human space. Officially, the colony had been evacuated. In reality, 300 miners and their families had gone underground. Literally, they had moved their entire operation into the deep tunnels of the asteroid they were mining. "Captain Choi," said the colony leader Won-Ho Lee, "you don't know how good it is to see you." Do-Hyun unloaded medical supplies, food concentrates, and most importantly, communication equipment that would let the hidden colonies stay in touch with other ghost settlements. How many colonies are doing this? Wanho asked. More than the council thinks. Less than we need. Dohyun sealed the last cargo container. But we're building a network. Information, supplies, people. We're going to help each other survive. Network grew faster than anyone expected. Within 2 months, Dohyun's single ship had become a fleet of 40 vessels. Some were converted passenger ships. Others were mining haulers or agricultural transports. They all shared one thing: human crews who refused to abandon their people. But they weren't the only ones taking risks. On the Kalen homeworld, a young diplomat named Sebin Yoon was having a very dangerous conversation. "You're asking me to commit treason," said Veltar, a Kalen council member. His translator made his voice sound calm, but Sebin could see the nervous twitching of his antenna. "I'm asking you to prevent a genocide," Sebin replied. They were meeting in a private chamber deep within the Kalen government complex. Officially, Sabin was there to discuss final evacuation procedures. Unofficially, he was trying to build an alliance. "The Kalen have always valued cooperation over domination," Sebin continued. "You've seen what humans can accomplish when we work together. Our joint research stations have made breakthrough discoveries. Our trade agreements have benefited both species." Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "There are others who think as I do. The forced expulsion of humans violates the fundamental principles of galactic law, but speaking against the council majority is dangerous, I know, but staying silent while innocent people die is worse." Veltar made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "What do you need?" 3 weeks later, Sabin found himself on a ship he never expected to see. The Depth Dweller vessel looked more like a living creature than a machine. Its hull curved and flowed like water, and bioluminescent panels provided a soft blue glow. Commander Vreeland met him at the airlock. The aquatic alien moved in a specialized walking suit filled with water, but his large eyes showed intelligence and determination. "Mr. Yoon," Vreeland said through his suit's translator, "my people have reviewed your proposal. We are prepared to offer limited assistance to human colonies." "Limited how?" "We cannot directly oppose the council, but we can provide information. Safe passage through our territory, medical supplies, and most importantly, we can shield some of your communication networks from council monitoring." Sebin felt hope for the first time in months. "Why are you doing this?" "Because the Depth Dwellers were once refugees too. 3,000 years ago, our homeworld was destroyed by a stellar collision. The other species of that time could have helped us find a new home. Instead, they argued about territory and politics while my people died in space." Vreeland paused, and Sebin could see pain in those large alien eyes. "We survived because a few brave individuals from other species defied their governments to help us. We remember that debt, and we see the same courage in humans who refuse to abandon their homes. The alliance was fragile and unofficial, but it gave the ghost colonies something they desperately needed: proof that they weren't completely alone." Back on Kepler 442b, Yunji was making discoveries that would have shocked the Galactic Council if they had known about them. The crystal beings weren't just teaching her about healing. They were sharing information about other species, other worlds, other conflicts throughout galactic history. "They're like living libraries," she explained to Jisoo as they watched the crystals create new light patterns. "They remember everything that happens on worlds where they exist, and they exist on more worlds than anyone realizes." The crystals showed them images of other species who had been expelled from their homes. Other wars fought over resources and territory. Other times, when cooperation had been abandoned in favor of fear and control. "Dr. Lee," Jisoo said quietly, "they're showing us the pattern. This has happened before, and it will happen again unless someone breaks the cycle." That night, Yoonji made a decision that would change the course of the conflict. She sent a message through Doyun's smuggler network to every ghost colony, every sympathetic alien contact, and every human ship still operating in space. "The crystals have shown us something important," her message said. "The Council's power isn't built on strength. It's built on fear. Fear of change, fear of cooperation, fear of losing control. But fear can be overcome. We have allies. We have knowledge. And we have something the Council has forgotten. She paused, thinking of all the colonists who had chosen to stay. All the smugglers risking their lives to keep communities alive. All the alien friends who were quietly helping despite the risks. We have hope, and hope is contagious. Every day we survive, every discovery we make, every new alliance we build, we prove that the galaxy is big. The first strike came without warning. Farmer Junhyuk Shin was checking his crop sensors when the sky above New Jeju turned white. For 3 seconds, the artificial aurora lit up the atmosphere like a second sun. Then the orbital bombardment began. Energy beams lanced down from space, turning the main settlement into a crater of melted metal and burning soil. The agricultural district suffered next. Centuries-old terrace farms, built with love and patience by 3 generations of colonists, disappeared in moments. Junhyuk dove into an irrigation ditch as the ground around him exploded. The heat was so intense that his hair singed. When he finally looked up, half of New Jeju was gone. Above the atmosphere, Admiral Korthak of the Zarathi Empire watched the destruction with satisfaction. His flagship, the Judgment, led a fleet of 30 council vessels. Their mission was simple: remove all human presence from this sector of space. Target eliminated, reported his tactical officer. No life signs detected in the primary settlement. Expand the bombardment grid, Korthak ordered. These humans are like insects. If you don't destroy the nest completely, they always come back. But Korthak didn't know about the underground shelters. He didn't know about the hidden farms in the canyon networks. Most importantly, he didn't know about the man organizing the resistance. Colonel Sunho Kang had been expecting this attack for months. He had served in the Earth Defense Force before retiring to New Jeju with his family. When the evacuation order came, he had started planning for war instead of retreat. All units, this is Shepard, he spoke into his communication device. Tiger Strike is confirmed, move to Phase 2 positions. Across the planet, hidden groups of colonists emerged from concealed bunkers. They weren't soldiers, but Sunho had taught them to fight like guerrillas. Farmers became saboteurs. Teachers became scouts. Shopkeepers became explosives experts. "Colonel," came a voice over the radio. "This is Hawk 6. Council ships are landing troops in Sector 7. Sunho checked his tactical display. Sector 7 was the old mining district. The Council forces were looking for survivors in the most obvious places. Copy. Hawk 6. Spring the trap. What the Council troops found wasn't desperate civilians. It was a carefully planned ambush. Hidden, explosive charges destroyed their landing craft. Sniper fire from concealed positions picked off their scouts. When they tried to advance, they walked into minefields that had been laid weeks earlier. The Zarathi soldiers were expecting to fight, primitive humans with basic weapons. Instead, they faced an enemy that knew every rock, every cave, every hidden path on the planet. The colonists hit hard and disappeared before the aliens could respond. But Sunho knew this was just the beginning. The Council had sent only one fleet, to New Jeju. They had dozens more, and they would keep coming until every human world was destroyed. 3 sectors away, Captain Ji-won Kim received the news aboard the Defiance. New Jeju was under attack. The Council wasn't waiting for the deadline, they were starting the extermination early. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the direction of Ross 128b. It looks like another Council fleet." Ji-won closed her eyes for a moment. Ross 128b was a mining colony with 50,000 residents. Most of them had stayed rather than abandon the rare metal deposits they had spent decades learning to extract. "Set course for Ross 128b, maximum speed. Captain, we're only one ship. The Council fleet has at least 20 vessels. I know the odds, Lieutenant, but those are our people down there." The Defiance wasn't much compared to a Council battle fleet. It was a patrol cruiser, designed for exploration and light combat. But it had one advantage the Council ships didn't expect: desperation. When Ji-won's ship arrived at Ross 128b, the bombardment had already begun. The mining platforms were burning in space while Council forces pounded the underground colonies. With seismic charges, all weapons target the lead battleship, Ji-won ordered. Hit them with everything we have. The Defiance's attack came as a complete surprise. The Council fleet had been so focused on destroying the planet that they hadn't posted proper scouts. Ji-won's ship tore through their formation, landing hits on 3 vessels before they could respond. But the counterattack was devastating. Energy, beams and missile strikes overwhelmed the Defiance's shields in seconds. The ship's hull began to crack under the assault. "Captain, we're losing life support on decks 3 and 4, reported the damage control officer. Ji-won was about to order a retreat when something impossible happened. The Council ship stopped firing. "Captain," her sensor operator called out, "I'm reading new contacts. 4 ships approaching from the edge of the system." The newcomers weren't human vessels. They had the flowing, organic design of depth dweller ships, and they were broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "Council fleet, this is Commander Vreeland of the Depth Dweller Navy. You are ordered to cease hostile actions against civilian targets immediately." Admiral Korthak's voice came back over the communication channel. "Commander Vreeland, you have no authority in this matter. Withdraw immediately or be considered hostile. We claim salvage rights to the system under Galactic Treaty 847C. Any actions that damage our claimed assets will be met with defensive force." It was a legal fiction, but it worked. The Depth Dwellers had found a loophole in galactic law that let them interfere without technically breaking the Council's orders. The Council fleet found itself in an impossible position. They couldn't attack the Depth Dwellers without starting a war between Council members. But they also couldn't complete their mission while the alien ships were present. Admiral Korthak made a decision that would haunt him later. He ordered his fleet to withdraw. As the Council ships disappeared into hyperspace, Ji-won found herself staring at something she had never expected to see: alien vessels coming to help humans. "Captain Kim," Commander Vreeland's voice came over the communication system. "My engineers will assist with your repairs. We have much to discuss." 2 hours later, Ji-won stood in the water-filled command center of Vreeland's ship. The Depth Dweller commander moved gracefully through his liquid environment while she used a breathing apparatus. "Why did you help us?" she asked. "Because extinction is forever," Vreeland replied. "My people learned that lesson 3,000 years ago. We will not watch it happen to another species. The Council will call this treason." The Council calls many things treason these days. Opposition to genocide should not be one of them. Vreeland showed her a holographic display of the galaxy. Green dots marked human colonies. Red dots showed Council fleet positions. But now there were blue dots too, alien ships and stations that had quietly declared support for the human cause. "You are not as alone as the Council wants you to believe," Vreeland said. "Many species remember what it feels like to be powerless. Some of us have decided to do something about it. The rescue at Ross 128b changed everything. News of the Depth Dweller intervention spread through both human and alien communication networks. For the first time since the expulsion order, humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting with allies. But the most important development was happening in a hidden workshop on the asteroid base called Haven. Chief Engineer Yuna Nam had been working for months on a project that could change the entire war. "Hand me the quantum resonator," she said to her assistant, Hyun-woo Park. They were surrounded by pieces of alien technology, shield generators, weapon systems, and computer cores that had been salvaged from damaged Council ships. "Are you sure this will work?" Hyun-woo asked as he passed her the device. "No," Yuna admitted, "but if it does work, it will level the playing field." She had been reverse engineering Council technology since the crisis began. The problem was that alien shields and weapons were designed for alien ships. Human vessels couldn't generate enough power to run them properly. But Yuna had discovered something interesting. Human fusion reactors produced energy in a different way than alien power systems. Instead of trying to copy alien technology exactly, she had modified it to work with human engineering principles. "Initiating test sequence," she announced. The prototype shield generator hummed to life. Energy readings climbed steadily until they reached levels that should have been impossible for a human ship to achieve. "It's working," Hyun-woo whispered. The power output is 3 times higher than any council vessel. Yuna smiled grimly. That's because we're not trying to be elegant. We're trying to survive. The hybrid technology spread through the human fleet faster than anyone expected. Captain Do-hyun Choi's smuggling network had become a pipeline for modified equipment. Ships that had barely been able to defend themselves were suddenly mounting weapons and shields that could challenge council vessels. The first real test came at the Battle of Kepler Station. A council patrol had discovered one of the hidden supply bases and moved in to destroy it. What they found was 5 human ships with impossible energy signatures. Captain Misyong Cho of the transport New Busan led the defense. Her ship had been converted from a cargo hauler into a pocket battleship using Yuna's modifications. All ships concentrate fire on the lead council vessel, she ordered. The human ships struck with coordinated precision. Their modified weapons punched through council shields that should have been invulnerable. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen chaos like this. Representatives from 12 species shouted at each other in a dozen different languages while translators struggled to keep up. At the center of the storm sat High Chancellor Vexmar of the Zarathi Empire, his forearms gesturing angrily as he addressed the assembly. The human disease spreads faster than we anticipated. His translated voice boomed across the chamber. 3 more species have withdrawn their support for the expulsion. The Kalan have formally declared neutrality. The depth dwellers are actively protecting human colonies. If we do not act decisively, the entire council structure will collapse. Ambassador Kilren of the Kalan stood to respond. Her tall, graceful form contrasted sharply with the angry Zarathi leader. Perhaps the council structure should collapse, Chancellor. We have become so concerned with maintaining power that we have forgotten our original purpose, to ensure peace and cooperation among all species. The chamber erupted again. Half the delegates shouted agreement with Kilren. The other half demanded stronger action against the humans and their allies. In a secure communications center deep beneath the chamber, human diplomat Ji-hoon Oh watched the proceedings through hidden cameras. The Kalan had been secretly feeding information to the human resistance for months, and today they had finally gone public with their support. It's working, said his companion, a Kalan intelligence officer named Telvan. The council is splitting, apart exactly as you predicted. Ji-hoon nodded, but he felt no satisfaction. The political victory was coming at a terrible cost. Council hardliners were responding to defections by escalating the violence against human colonies. Every day brought news of new attacks, new casualties, new worlds turned to ash. We need to move to the next phase, Ji-hoon said. It's time for the broadcast. 3 hours later, every communication network in the galaxy received the same signal. The source was untraceable, bounced through relay stations across hundreds of star systems. The message was simple but revolutionary. A human face appeared on screens throughout galactic space. Ji-hoon Oh looked directly into the camera and spoke in perfect galactic standard. My name is Ji-hoon Oh, representing the free human colonies and our allies in the Galactic Liberation Front. For too long, the Council has ruled through fear and division. They tell you that humans are dangerous, that we threaten the established order. They are right. We do threaten their order, an order built on the suffering of the weak and the silence of the afraid. The broadcast continued for 20 minutes. Ji-hoon spoke of cooperation instead of domination. He offered to share human medical advances, agricultural techniques, and technological innovations with any species willing to work together. Most importantly, he made a promise that shocked even his own allies. We do not seek to conquer or rule. We seek to build something new, a galaxy where membership is earned through contribution, not birthright, where smaller species have the same voice as ancient empires, where fear is replaced by hope. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, communication networks across the galaxy were flooded with messages of support, not just from oppressed species, but from ordinary citizens of Council worlds who were tired of endless wars and political games. On the insectoid world of Zeth Prime, a young collective mind named Krita convinced her hive sisters to formally request alliance with the humans. The collective had been the youngest member of the Council, barely tolerated by the older species. Now they saw a chance to join something better. The humans offer partnership, not patronage, Krita broadcast to her people. They judge us by our actions, not our age. The collective's defection was the tipping point. 3 more species announced their withdrawal from the Council within a single day. The 1,000-year-old alliance was fracturing faster than anyone had thought possible, but the hardliners weren't giving up without a fight. Dr. Yunji Lee was working in her crystal laboratory when the attack came. She had been deep in communication with the crystal beings, learning about an ancient network that connected living worlds across the galaxy. The crystals were excited. For the first time in millennia, different species were working together instead of fighting. Then, the building shook. "Dr. Lee!" Jisoo ran into the laboratory, her face pale with fear. "Council forces have landed. They're not just bombing this time. They're sending ground troops to capture the research stations." Yunji looked at the crystal samples around her. 8 years of work. Discoveries that could change medicine forever. Knowledge that the crystal beings had shared with her as a gesture of trust. "We can't let them destroy this," she said firmly. "Help me pack the essential samples. We're taking the research underground." Outside, the colonists of Kepler 442b were fighting a desperate battle against overwhelming odds. But they weren't fighting alone anymore. Ships with the flowing design of depth-dweller vessels provided air support. Kalan medical teams treated wounded civilians. Even some collective warriors had arrived to help defend the research stations. The sight of different species fighting side by side against the Council forces sent a powerful message across the galaxy. This wasn't just a human rebellion anymore. It was a revolution. Captain Ji-won Kim had been promoted to admiral after her victories in the outer colonies. Now she commanded a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels that called itself the Liberation Navy. Her flagship was still the Defiance, but it had been upgraded with the best technology from half a dozen species. "Admiral, her communications," officer reported. "We're receiving a priority message from Admiral Park. The Council is massing their main battle fleet at Zerath. Intelligence suggests they're planning a final assault on Earth itself." Ji-won felt cold fear grip her heart. Earth was where this had all started. Billions of humans lived there, including many who had opposed the colonial expansion. If the Council attacked Earth, it would be genocide on an unimaginable scale. "Set course for the Sol system," she ordered. "Send word to all allied fleets. Everything we have, human, Kalan, depth dweller, collective, we need it all at Earth." The Liberation fleet that assembled in Earth orbit was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human vessels flew alongside alien ships in a display of cooperation that should have been impossible. At the center of it all, Admiral Hyunwoo Park's massive battlecruiser Seoul served as the command ship for the most diverse military force in galactic history. "Status report," Admiral Park requested as his senior officers gathered in the briefing room. 215 ships total," reported Captain Mizyong Cho. 63 human vessels, 47 depth-dweller ships, 38 Kalan cruisers, 21 collective swarm units, and 46 vessels from smaller allied species. "And facing us?" "Council intelligence estimates over 400 ships, including the Zerathi Empire's entire home fleet." The odds were terrible, but Admiral Park had learned something important over the past year. Numbers weren't everything. The Council forces were powerful but predictable. They relied on overwhelming firepower and rigid tactics. The Liberation fleet was smaller, but more flexible, more innovative, and most importantly, more motivated. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Park addressed the mixed group of human and alien officers, "we're not just fighting for Earth today. We're fighting for the right of all species to choose their own destiny. The Council wants to turn the clock back to a time when might made right. We're here to prove that cooperation is stronger than domination." Commander Vreeland of the Depth Dwellers spoke through his translator. "Admiral Park, my people pledge our full support. The Liberation Fleet fights as one." Similar promises came from all the Allied commanders. Whatever happened in the coming battle, they would face it together. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yunji Lee's voice crackled over the communication system from her hidden laboratory. "On Kepler 442b, Admiral Park, the crystal beings have given me something for you. They call it the memory of stars, information about Council fleet movements, tactical weaknesses, even the location of their command ships. The crystals have been watching galactic warfare for millions of years. They're finally ready to share what they've learned. The data that flowed from the crystal network was beyond anything the Liberation Fleet had hoped for. Real-time intelligence on council positions, detailed analysis of their weapon systems, and most importantly, the exact location of the Zarathi, command ship where High Chancellor Vexmar was directing the entire operation. As the council fleet approached Earth, they expected to find a desperate human defense. Instead, they found a coordinated alliance that knew their every move before they made it. The battle began with the Council's traditional overwhelming assault. Hundreds of ships opened fire on the Liberation Fleet with enough firepower to crack a planet. But the Allied ships moved in patterns that seemed to anticipate every attack. They scattered and regrouped in ways that confused Council targeting systems. Admiral Ji-won Kim led the first counterattack with a mixed squadron of human and Kalan ships. Using intelligence from the Crystal Network, they struck at exactly the right moment to catch the Council ships while their shields were recharging. All units target their command structure, she ordered. The crystals show us where their admirals are hiding. 2 years had passed since the first expulsion order. The galaxy was no longer recognizable. Admiral Hyun-woo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive fleet assembled around Earth. 2,000 ships from dozens of species formed the largest military force in recorded history. But today they weren't gathering for destruction. They were preparing to liberate the core worlds and end the war that had torn the galaxy apart. "Admiral," reported Captain Ji-won Kim from her position aboard the Defiance. "Long-range sensors confirm Council fleet positions around Zarath Prime. Intelligence estimates 800 vessels, including their most advanced battleships." Park nodded grimly. The core worlds were the Council's last stronghold. After losing 3/4 of their member species to the Liberation Alliance, the hardliners had retreated to their oldest and most fortified systems. High Chancellor Vexmar had declared that he would rather see the galaxy burn than accept defeat. "Status of Dr. Lee's project?" Park asked. "Crystal Network interface is ready for deployment, sir. The connection protocols have been tested on smaller Council systems. If it works on their main computers, we'll be able to shut down their entire defense grid," Park finished. It sounded impossible, but then again, most of what they had accomplished over the past 2 years had seemed impossible. Dr. Yoonji Lee floated in the zero-gravity laboratory aboard the research vessel New Seoul. Around her, dozens of crystal beings pulsed with synchronized light patterns. They had been working together for months to develop something unprecedented, a direct interface between the Crystal Network and alien computer systems. "The crystals are ready," she reported to Admiral Park. "But they want to make sure we understand the risks. Once we connect to the Council systems, there's no going back. Every artificial intelligence in their network will know about the crystal beings. The secret will be out forever." Park considered this. The crystal beings had hidden themselves for millions of years, watching galactic civilizations rise and fall. By revealing themselves to help humans, they were giving up their greatest protection: anonymity. "Why are they willing to take this risk?" he asked. Yoonji translated the crystal being's response. "They say the time for hiding is over. For too long, they watched species destroy each other while they stayed silent. The human revolution has shown them that cooperation is possible. They want to be part of building something better." The final battle began at dawn, Zarath Standard Time. The Liberation Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their mixed composition of human and alien vessels creating a display of unity that would have been unthinkable 3 years earlier. The Council's response was immediate and devastating. The orbital platforms around Zarath Prime opened fire with weapons that could reduce moons to rubble. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space with deadly light, but the Liberation Fleet had learned to fight differently. Instead of meeting force with force, they used the Crystal Network's intelligence to dance between the attacks. Ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually guided by the Crystal's perfect knowledge of Council targeting systems. "Captain." Ji-won Kim led the first wave, her modified ships diving through the defense grid like swimmers in a deadly ocean. All squadrons, follow crystal guidance. Trust the network. The crystal beings had connected to millions of similar life forms throughout the galaxy. Through them, they could see every council ship, every weapon, every strategic decision as it was made. They shared this knowledge instantly with their human allies, creating a level of coordination that the Council couldn't match. Admiral Korthak, commanding the Council's final defense, watched in growing horror as his carefully planned formations fell apart. The humans seemed to know his every move before he made it. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his intelligence officers. "Unknown, sir. Their coordination patterns suggest they have access to real-time information about all our systems." Korthak made a desperate decision. "All ships focus fire on the human command vessel, if we can break their coordination." But when the Council fleet concentrated their attack on Admiral Park's flagship, they exposed themselves to the Liberation Fleet's hidden weapon. Dr. Yoonji Lee, working with the crystal beings, established a connection to the Council's main computer network. "Interface established," she reported. "The crystals are in their system." What happened next had never been seen before in galactic warfare. The crystal beings, acting as living viruses in the Council's computer network, began taking control of enemy systems. Defense grids shut down. Weapon systems turned on their own ships. Navigation computers sent vessels into collision courses with each other. But the most important change was subtler. The crystal beings began broadcasting something the Council had tried to suppress for years: the truth. Across the core worlds, people watched as hidden records appeared on their communication screens. Files showing the real reasons for the human expulsion. Evidence of other species that had been eliminated or enslaved by the Council. Proof that the galaxy's most powerful leaders had built their empire on lies and oppression. On Zerath Prime itself, crowds began gathering in the streets. For the first time in centuries, ordinary citizens were seeing what their government had done in their name. High Chancellor Vexmar watched his empire crumble from his command bunker deep beneath the planet's surface. The Crystal Network had revealed everything: the massacres, the cover-ups, the secret deals that had kept the Council in power for 1,000 years. "Sir," reported his aide, "the population is demanding your resignation. Military units are refusing orders. Our remaining fleet commanders are requesting terms for surrender." Vexmar stared at the tactical displays showing Liberation fleet ships surrounding Zerath Prime. He had started this war to preserve the old order. Instead, he had accidentally created something entirely new. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said finally. Admiral Park received the transmission aboard his flagship. The Zerathi leader looked older and smaller than in his propaganda broadcasts. "Admiral Park," Vexmar said, "I am prepared to discuss terms for surrender." Park felt a moment of triumph, but it was mixed with sadness. Too many had died to reach this point. Too many worlds had been destroyed. Too many families had been torn apart. "Chancellor," Park replied, "we will accept nothing less than complete surrender and the dissolution of the current Council structure. But we offer something in return: amnesty for those willing to join the new galactic government, and assistance in rebuilding what this war has destroyed." The offer was more generous than anyone expected. Instead of demanding revenge, the Liberation Alliance was offering cooperation. It was exactly the kind of approach that had made the human revolution different from every other galactic conflict. 3 months later, representatives from over 200 species gathered on the neutral world of Haven Station. The location was symbolic. Haven had been one of the first human hidden bases, later expanded to include refugees from the Galactic Civil War. Jihoon, now serving as the first elected Chancellor of the Cooperative Commonwealth, stood before the Assembly. The government they were creating was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the rigid hierarchy of the old Council, the Commonwealth was based on contribution and cooperation. Every species, regardless of age or size, has an equal voice, Jihoon announced. Membership is not a privilege to be granted by the powerful. It is a right to be claimed by the committed. The Cooperative Commonwealth's first acts were as revolutionary as its structure. Instead of punishing former Council worlds, they offered reconstruction aid. Instead of seizing territory, they helped establish independent governments. Instead of demanding tribute, they shared technology freely. Dr. Yoonji Lee, now heading the Commonwealth's Medical Research Division, worked openly with the crystal beings to develop new treatments for diseases that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. The crystalline life forms, no longer hidden, became partners in the greatest scientific collaboration in galactic history. Captain Do-Yoon Choi's smuggling network became the foundation for a new trade system that connected even the most remote worlds. His motto, "No one gets left behind," became the unofficial slogan of the Commonwealth's expansion program. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to the new cooperative model. Others tried to recreate the old hierarchies within the Commonwealth structure. But the Crystal Network, now openly integrated with galactic communication systems, made it impossible to hide corruption or oppression for long. 5 years after the first expulsion order, Admiral Ji-won Kim stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting New Jeju. The planet had been rebuilt, its terraced farms more beautiful than ever. Children played in gardens that existed only because their parents had refused to give up hope. "Hard to believe it all started with an ultimatum," said Admiral Park, joining her at the viewport. "Did it start there?" Ji-won asked. "Or did it start when the first human looked at the stars and decided they belonged there too?" Below them, New Jeju turned slowly in the light of its alien sun. Human farmers worked alongside Kalan engineers and collective scientists.